Greetings and welcome to This Month in Warhammer Underworlds for June 2021. This is your one-stop shop for everything Warhammer Underworlds news related, recapping everything that has happened in the past month. And once again, there's been a lot of news for our favourite competitive arena miniatures combat game. As always, each news item can be found with its own timestamp in the episode description below. And always, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as comment as to what you thought of the news and, well, what you'd like to see on the channel. June saw the release of the final Warhammer Underworlds Diachasm warband, Elathain Soulraid. This is an odd warband consisting of 3 Idoneth Deepkin elves, a fish, and a crab. It is a warband with 5 fighters that can deploy as 4. Elathain Soulraid has a lot of tricks and rules, making it a struggle to keep track of stuff, but they give a lot of options to the player. A lack of free damage is problematic too, especially with fragile fighters across the board. The warband does well manipulating poison gambits at the moment, but rotation may mean the death for these fishy elves. Still, they always have a crab. Believe in crab. Crab, trust crab. Trust crab to win. If you want a more thorough review of this new warband, check out the episode description below for reviews that I have done on Elathain Soulraid. There are a lot of tier lists in June for Warhammer Underworlds. Almost too many. I dropped my own Q2 tier lists for Warhammer Underworlds along with Aman with his own From Path to Glory in a continuation of his regular series into balance for the game as well. There were a lot of other tier lists as well, but it was funny seeing so many drop together in such a short space of time. Still, even the tier lists from less competitive sources still offered an interesting viewpoint on how people view the balance and meta for Warhammer Underworlds Diachasm. If you're interested on my own take, you can check it out down in the episode description below, although it is kind of out of date. As I covered in my video on why Warhammer Underworlds needs a new FAQ, the June 2020 FAQ turned 1 year old. 1 year without an update is depressing, as there are a lot of rules that need answering. I'm highlighting this just to spread the issues people have in regards to rules questions for the game, as there are huge disagreements on interactions such as timing for when you get the primacy token after an activation, as well as other card interactions. While this did not bring any community consensus, it did show that there are a lot of rules questions that desperately need answering for cleaner gameplay experiences. And as before, if you want more information, check out my video on the subject in the episode description below. In a shocking turn of events, Games Workshop surprised us as a new update for the Forsaken and Restricted list, as well as 2 new erratas dropped at the end of June. This saw a massive update to the Forsaken and Restricted lists, with 23 cards being hit, along with 2 new erratas and an update to the Championship format document. From the 23 cards, 1 was Forsaken and 22 were Restricted. So long, Ferocious Resistance. The first of the erratas saw Mollog having his Inspired ability changed to no longer allowing him to make super actions while he has at least 1 charge token, which basically meant no more double charging. Kagra's Ravagers had their Inspire condition reduced, meaning they only needed 2 Desecration tokens instead of 3. While nice, it doesn't fix the big problem of being unable to hold friendly objectives that have been desecrated. After playing a few games, I found only really Mollog and Range 1 aggro has been hit the most. The speed package, movement cards like Outrun Death, Savage Speed, Gathered Momentum, etc. are basically untouched, even with cover ground restricted. Hold objective play is a lot more viable now, but aggro is still king. Not to mention that Drepper's Wraith Creepers are absolutely broken now. An odd take was the Vanguard document wasn't updated, meaning it has no Forsaken and Restricted list, but it also means no use of the Essentials card pack, as well as the starter set warbands. If you want an in-depth review of this, check out the episode description below for my own video on the new Forsaken and Restricted list changes, as well as the new erratas too. Warhammer Underworlds Online had a big free-to-keep week during the Skull event in June. This meant if you downloaded the game during that week, you get to keep it forever for free. The game went up to 782 players peak, bigger than even at launch. However, after the free week, player counts dropped to 40, meaning a loss of about 95% of players. This is a huge drop. However, as my friend pointed out, the game had gone from 13 players peak to 40, so that's a big win. Outside of that, Garrick's Reavers were also released during that time, finally. They're a good warband, but get absolutely torn apart by the newer DLC warbands, which aren't from Shadespire. It's a shame, as the warband would have done really well if dropped much earlier in Warhammer Underworld Online's lifespan. For Podcast Corner in June, Path to Glory kicks things off with 3 episodes. The first 2 cover cards and a review for Elathain's Soulraid. The last episode covers the new changes to balance with the new Forsaken and Restricted list and Errata. What the Hex released 3 episodes themselves. The first covers favourite Diachasm Universal cards, Tommy Conboy joins them to talk about Canaan's Reapers, and lastly they go over the new FAR. Battle for Salvation returns. For June they have 3 episodes. The first goes over the Universal cards found in Kagra's Ravagers Warband expansion. Next they have on me, as we do a deep dive into the Starblood Stalkers, going in depth talking about tactics and tricks and how to best use the warband. The gem of Diachasm and of my heart. I love you, Otterpaddle. Finally, they have a 3rd episode dedicated to the Universal cards from the Starblood Stalkers. The Burning Crow-Wargamer podcast has 1 episode on YouTube dedicated to Elathain Soulraid. Then finally, there's me with Critcast episode 12, Warhammer Underworlds Balance and the Right to Respond. Me and Rob Gilmore reflect over the balance of Warhammer Underworld since Shadespire, covering commonly hit cards and playstyles, as well as the important concept of having the right to respond in games. Tournaments and events for June kicks off with the Straight Out of Shadespire Webcam tournament. This 4-round best-of-1 tournament had 10 players. In the end, G won with his Crimson Court. It was a standard championship format event with no custom FAR list, and before the new FAR list was released. Next was the June Vassal Clash. This was another 2-day best-of-3 online tournament. Out of 28 players, Tommy Conboy managed to win again, after beating out the King of Canada in a Thorns of the Briar Queen vs Canaan's Reapers showdown. For the summary of my content for June, I had my Elathain Soulraid review, my previously mentioned Q2 tier list for Warhammer Underworlds, the Age of Sigmar Dominion box set review, my celebration of the Warhammer Underworlds FAQ turning 1 year old, an article, which is a new series for me, comparing the Hunger and Primacy mechanics, seeing which is better and how they compare, basically. And then my overview for the new Forsaken and Restricted list, along with the Erratas. Then finally, Critcast episode 12, along with my usual slew of YouTube battle reports for Warhammer Underworlds. June was rather a big month, not so much on releases, but more so on updates for Warhammer Underworlds. Now we enter the summer lull for the game. Not many events are happening, so all we can do is wait and hope for the announcement of a potential Season 5, maybe even Space Spire. Before I go, please feel free to check out my affiliate link to Element Games in the episode description below. Any purchases you do make grant you a 20 to 15% discount at no additional cost to yourself, or helping to support the channel, so check it out if you can. And as always, please remember to like and subscribe and comment as to what you thought of this month's recap for June 2021, as well as, well, what else you'd like to see on the channel. Elathain Soulraid has lurked into the Diachasm. Mollog has now been sent reeling by balance and lives in shame. What is left for the future of Warhammer Underworlds? Only crits.